Stats don't lie. From competitor to podcaster to world stage sports commentator. Hello and welcome to On The Rox Podcast with me, Coach Marshy. Hope everyone is well, training is going well, and as this is aired, we are fast approaching the start of the UK Hyrox season. So on that note, let's welcome in today's guest. Hello and welcome to Greg. Hello, Greg. How are you?
Hello, mate. I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming on. So for those people that don't know who you are Greg from the Roxlyfe. Tell us a little bit about that.
So yeah, I run Roxlyfe, it started out as a website, roxlyfe.com, purely dedicated to Hyrox. So it really just started out like with a beginner's guide to Hyrox, giving some tips, explaining what Hyrox is, everything like that. And it's kind of grown from there to training tips, interviews. We now run a podcast all about Hyrox, Instagram channel all about Hyrox. So yeah, it's grown from there. It's just purely Hyrox focused blog, podcast, Instagram channel, YouTube channel, everything like that.
And before we kind of unpack that a little bit more, sort of go back for us. So a lot of people will know the Roxlyfe podcast, will have listened to it if they're sort of searching for Hyrox kind of tips or any sort of programs. They may have found that on a web search. But before that, who were you? What did you do before Hyrox even existed?
So it depends how far you want to go back. But like when I left school, I started working for Ford's Ford Motor Company in like finance and stuff like that. And then always, was entrepreneurial, wanted to run different businesses, this, that, and the other. Ultimately ended up leaving Ford's after about, 15, 16 years. And that was I was a nutritionist as well. So I was working with people mainly with Crohn's and ulcerative colitis, so like forms of inflammatory bowel disease, because my wife had ulcerative colitis, which is like, if you don't know, that's like a quite severe digestive, like it's a autoimmune condition. And she was on a lot of meds and really, really struggling and wasn't really necessarily getting where she wanted just through the traditional medical route. And we, like, through my nutrition work, my nutrition work initially started out working with people just like in the sports sector or like body composition changes, things like that. But then we sort of met a couple who he had ulcerative colitis and he'd managed to turn things around through diet and lifestyle changes and testing and all kinds of things. It wasn't just only nutrition, but that sort of sent us down that route. And then I helped my wife really turn things around so that she's now free of like medication and symptoms really. And then I sort of started specializing in helping other people with that, helping with those conditions. And I should say it's like in addition to what they're doing with the doctor. It's not like I'm trying to pretend or was trying to pretend to be a doctor or anything like that. It was just helping people from that side of things. And it was amazing at times, like how people's lives just like changed when, they're not on the toilet 20 times a day or something like that, or in a lot of pain or fatigued. And so like that was like the work that I did when I left Ford's. And then kind of off the back of that, I started a supplement company that was like with supplements designed to help people with chronic health conditions. So Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, arthritis. It was called like Autoimmune Institute. So it was very much specializing in autoimmune conditions. But it was like natural health supplements. And I sort of ran that as well for a few years alongside the nutrition work, and then ultimately sold the supplement business to someone, and that kind of freed me up to explore other options. And that's when Hyrox eventually came along, and I thought, this thing's going to grow. And like the initial intention was just to write a really good article on it that might attract Google, and like might, you know, when people start searching for Hyrox, they might find that article. And so I wrote that article, and then it's like grown from there. And then like you think of other articles to write and podcast episodes and all these kinds of things to do off of the back of that. But yeah, that's kind of how it started. That's my background.
So yeah, the motivation then of starting Roxlyfe was purely that you wrote this one article because you wanted to write a good article about it. And then, as you've just said, was it that kind of inspiration to create and preneur around Hyrox, it just sort of flowed after that first sort of initial publication?
Yeah, I mean, in previous in past nutrition work, I'd occasionally written like the occasional article about whatever certain topics, and I saw that sometimes that article served you for years, because like if you just write the best article on the internet for that certain topic, then it can serve you for years. So as soon as I felt like Hyrox was going to grow, and obviously like I liked Hyrox, so it's like a topic that I wanted to write about and be involved in and everything like that, that's when I was like, well, I'll just give this a go and see how it goes. And it's worked out all right, to be fair.
It's awesome. And I think, you know, just so you're aware, I'm sure you've been told many stories about your kind of your webpage and the podcast, and people listening to shows and taking inspiration from it. I think from our point of view, we joined the party, say January 23, right at the beginning, end of 2022. We joined the party, started doing Hyrox classes, affiliated, etc. And pretty much everything we were looking at was what you'd published. Carol, one of my coaches and world champs athlete here at my gym, she would look into a lot of data and a lot of stats. She's very medical background, scientific background, and it was always your website that came up with the information that she wanted. Little did we know she was then going to play at world record level, but then again, your website became handy again, because that allowed us to then look into certain stats that you had provided on your platform. And I think our impression is, from what we've been told and what we see with you, there's kind of maybe a nickname in there for you, that you're a stats man.
maybe. I mean, I've always been like a numbers guy, to be fair. And like when I was at Falls, I was like qualified as an accountant and worked in finance. And yeah, I like the numbers side of things. And I think what like the second or third article I wrote on the website was like it was the average to elite article. So it sort of compared what is an average competitor doing in Hyrox differently to what the elite competitors are doing. And like, obviously it's not like, obviously they're going faster, the elites are going faster, but it was trying to uncover, like, are they pacing things different? Are they taking a different approach on the ergs and the sleds and that kind of stuff? So yeah, there was, in the very early days of Roxlyfe, I did probably geek out more than I do now on some of the stats and the numbers behind it. So yeah, I think I sort of gained that name quite early on.
No, well, we certainly appreciate it, and it's definitely been, you know, your whole platform has been something that's inspired, you know, the Purple Army here at my gym, and very much helped us along the way as well with the advice and tips, and now all the episodes as well. Which, when was it you decided to do the podcast? Was that because it was kind of the medium of the day, or was it like you always wanted to do a podcast?
No, I definitely didn't always want to do a podcast, in all honesty. I'm not a huge talker in reality. So my initial like feeling was like, am I enough as a conversationalist to be able to like run a podcast? And like, I remember my initial thought was like, maybe I'll just do like short, snappy 10-minute episodes and take the pressure off of it, having to do like too much content within the episode and everything like that. But somehow I just ended up doing a like more traditional type of podcast. But I think it was, initially I was trying to get an article out every week, and there's only so much you can write about Hyrox at the end of the day. And then so and then I don't really know why. It was more just like, well, I think a podcast is the obvious next step, and it was definitely pushing me out of my comfort zone. But maybe that's like a reason I ended up doing it in reality as well. But like, yeah, the first few went quite well. I think, I can't remember who they were with, in all honesty, but yeah, it's just grown from there. And the reality is, it's more on the guest and like having a good guest to tell you about their life and all that kind of stuff. But certainly weren't my initial intention to do that.
Yeah, no, and would you have said it was out of your comfort zone then as well?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I definitely procrastinated on it a little bit more than maybe someone else might have done. But yeah, I ended up doing it anyway. And it's interesting, like the different mediums, if you like, and the numbers behind it. Like the website gets tons more hits and reads than the podcast does. The podcast does quite well, to be fair, but we've had well over 1 million hits on the website now.
Yeah.
But it's but I think because people get to know you and people get to listen to you a little bit more and like sort of appreciate you as a person rather than just like this writing on the website. It's when someone comes to speak to me, it's almost always about the podcast and the episodes and like what they've watched and listened to. And even like companies, when they're sponsoring us, they're far more interested in the podcast side of things than the website. Even though the website like by far outweighs like the listeners in the podcast. Yeah,
no, absolutely. Like that's a really interesting thing to know. And like when I started this, it's all about the stories behind the people. And you know, some of the people will be you guys that we know publicly as a face to do with Hyrox, and some will be just sort of your everyday competitor coming on, and the stories behind these things. And I thought, right, let's talk to Greg if we can, because it'd be great to understand where Roxlyfe kind of originated from. And you've kind of said that, and yeah, you know, it doesn't sound like you stumbled across it, but it wasn't necessarily the plan to be the podcast. And now, like you say, it seems to be going from strength to strength. And I tune in every week. I know loads of people that tune in every week, and you know, we get a lot from it. It's definitely part of our zone 2 run, if you like. So, and then, you know, you've talked about a few things there in regards to the podcast itself. Obviously, with it not perhaps being the ultimate goal originally, I'm assuming then the whole kind of like sponsorship side and things that have come with it now, was that just natural progression?
Yeah. One thing I'll, just before we move on, like I'll say about the podcast is like, I'm really glad I did it, because the one other benefit of it, and like maybe you appreciate this as well, is that you actually get to talk to some pretty cool people as well. So like I sometimes think about it and I was like, oh, it's crazy that I've just like messaged this reasonably famous person, like literally one of the fittest people in the world. And they're like, yeah, I'd love to come on the podcast. And then we just sit and have a chat for an hour. And it's like, I sometimes finish up and I'm good, like, wow, like I'm actually really lucky to be able to do that.
Yeah.
You know, because like, you know, it's sometimes I do like believe like sometimes like you're the average of the people you spend like the most time with and all that kind of stuff. So to be able to message some of the people that I have on and like for them to be happy to have a chat, it is actually a privilege. So that is certainly like one reason that I'm really lucky to be able to do it. And even if no one listened and no one sponsored us or anything like that, it is still actually something that I would imagine a lot of people would still be able to like to do. Like we've had like Nick Bear on the podcast that came out today. And so to like be able to message Nick Bear and him like, yeah, I'll come for a chat. It's like, it's actually pretty cool. So yeah.
I mean, that, you know, you're unpacking stuff here that's awesome to understand more about. And I think, you know, a bit like you've just said, I do absolutely, it's a privilege. I can't believe some of the people that have come actually agreed to come on and have a chat with me. And you know, we just had Faisal last week, and we've got you today. You know, you guys are sort of big faces, recognizable faces around Hyrox, and you know, you're giving little old me a go to have a chat. And you know, I really appreciate it. It's absolutely awesome that you come on. But you are right, that feeling of having people on that you just, you know, you're getting a chance to spend that 40 minutes, an hour with them to chat through. And you know, you talk about Nick Bear there were 2 names other than, you know, the obvious ones like Meg and Hunter and everyone else that you've had, but like the 2 names that were sticking out for me having been in this industry quite a long time now, was Nick Bear, which has just come out today, which I haven't listened to yet. I thought I'll save that for after recording. And then the other one was Ben Bergeron as well. Now, anyone who doesn't know who Ben is a very established, well-known CrossFit coach. But I guess if you're not in the CrossFit world, you possibly wouldn't know Ben Bergeron. And then you brought him on your show. And quite frankly, and I think you did call it at the beginning of the show, you know, it's the type of show that you thought you would record that maybe you could come back to and take multiple things from over and over again. I've certainly listened to that show a few times. And those two names, Nick Bear, obviously I don't know how that actually went, but Nick and Ben, those two people, these are huge fitness people away from Hyrox coming on your show to talk about Hyrox. Sort of what was the feeling around that? And actually, as someone who's interested in Hyrox, now commentates on Hyrox, does a podcast, what was it you got out of it? And how did you feel like having those types of characters from the industry on your show?
Yes, it's awesome. You're right with Ben's one, especially, and there's been a few episodes like this. I mean, I actually love pretty much every episode we've ever recorded. Like I think they're all great, but every now and then an episode comes along and you think that's like worth multiple listens. Not because of me, but like because of the guest and what they've brought to it. And Ben's one is certainly one of those, I think. And to be fair, I probably need to give it another listen because it's been a little while. But because especially when it's like more mindset focused than like just traditional training and what you're doing for your Hyrox training, everything like that, like to really sort of get into the mind of an elite coach that's, you know, coach CrossFit Games winners and things like that, is it was a privilege. And I mean, he's such a good talker and he brought so much like good stuff along. It was absolute gold. So yeah, absolutely loved it. And to be fair, the same with Nick. I actually got off the call with Nick, and I sort of said, like, I mean, he's an amazing athlete, and I think he's going to do amazing when he races in Dallas in November. And it's like from the numbers he's putting into his training and everything like that, it sounds like he certainly could do. I mean, obviously there's a lot to be gained from experience in Hyrox, so you never really know how someone's going to do. But he's such a good talker as well. And like I came off of that and I was like, oh, there's definitely like levels to this game. And like he sort of made me feel like a bit of an amateur just purely in terms of like the podcast interviewing style, because he was just like so good and so calm and composed and good speaker and like very clear thinker as well. So yeah, it was great. And again, he's like his mindset shines through. It's not just like he's this genetically gifted athlete that's just going to be good. It's kind of like it's the mindset that he brings to his training and his life, and the sort of go one more attitude.
Yeah, go one more.
That like I don't know, it just really came through, and like I think like people can benefit from it as opposed to just purely being inspired by what an amazing athlete he is. I think you can sort of still apply that mindset and thinking to your own training, whatever level you're at, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, you know, Nick Bear is someone that, having been, you know, before this whole kind of Hyrox hybrid world, I was very much into my ultra running. So Nick Bear's YouTube channel, for example, is something that you would have come across if you were in the ultra running world, and probably watched multiple well-made documentaries on YouTube by his in-house team now. And, you know, kind of following this new vlog of his as well. Obviously, I'm assuming you will have seen that new Hyrox vlog that he's been posting week on week on his YouTube channel, which must have loaded you with all sorts of questions for him.
Yeah. I mean, it was good to get into his training. And he actually said that I think he thinks like the Hyrox training that he's been doing is, he said, I can't remember the exact quote, but it's like, is elevated all aspects of his fitness more than any other type of training that he's done. Actually, like I really got the impression he's almost in like the shape of his life doing what he's doing. And we're still, I think it's at least 6 weeks out from Dallas when I spoke to him. So he sounded like he was in a really good place. And just interesting to see what he's getting from the training. But he's very much he's certainly not coming into this as I know it all. I know what I'm going to do. Like I know how to train. He's like he said, he's been listening to my podcast. He's been listening to the RMR podcast as well, and like just picking up different training tips and listening to what everyone's saying and trying to apply that to his training. He's been very much a student of Hyrox, I think, while going through this process, and I think that's partly what he's enjoying about it as well, because he said he could have gone and done another marathon and, you know, but maybe beating his time by a certain amount of minutes, but he wasn't excited by that. I think he's excited by the Hyrox training and learning, and I guess we're kind of all in that place at the moment with Hyrox. There isn't this one set way to train for it, anything like that. It's like kind of an exciting time, I think, for everyone as they're like working out what works for them. But he's certainly very much come to it with that attitude as well, I think.
Yeah, no, I listened to the RMR one, and I've got to say, I thought Rich, Meg, and Ryan were very, they seemed very excitable on their episode, and it'll be interesting to see sort of how yours was as well, because someone like that is going to be the type of person that, you know, is a student, learns, does a few Hyroxes, and actually by the end of that early process, you might find they actually start knocking on the door of the Elite 15, right?
Yeah. I mean, that is kind of a good thing. We've talked about that on like the live stream before, and I talked about it with John Wynn and Lauren Weeks the other day. But everyone is competitors at that level, but most of them, not all of them, to be fair, but most of them are like supportive of others, and like they're sharing training tips. They're finding out what the others are doing in training, and they kind of all push each other on. So like, yeah, Rich and Ryan Kent. Sounds like they've been quite friendly with Nick. I think Hunter and Nick have planned to spend some time together as well. So it's not like this, I'm not telling you what I'm doing with my training thing because you might be a competitor. It does seem fairly open and friendly between all the people at that level in reality.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. So I was going to save this question for later, but I'll ask it now because we've just talked about two of your guests. Have you had a favorite guest or a couple of favorite guests, like things that you just thought were like completely different to the others, or something that stood out, or is that a bit like picking your favorite child?
It is. I honestly can't pick a favorite. I can't pick a favorite. There's some that stand out as, like I said earlier, that I think are worth listening to multiple times. I think like that Ben Bergeron is one of them. I think Josephine Perry, the sports psychologist, was another one that is full of gold, like full of tips that you can like really apply to your training, whatever level you're at, and you can listen to it multiple times and get something from it. And it was like, sometimes I don't know why, but it's sometimes an episode that I listen to and I'm like, yeah, I'm proud of that one. I'm proud that episode exists. Another one is the one with Jane Ergami. I know you know Jane.
Yeah.
Like that again was one where I think it's worth multiple listens, and that's a lot of people said that as well. Like, I've listened to this 5 times now, and that's when it sort of first got in my mind that there's certain episodes that people like to listen to multiple times. And Jane's one was probably, I think, the first one of those where people are just like, I've listened to this so many times, and you take something away every time from it. So
that one was funny for us, actually. That was really funny how that worked for us, because you did that episode with Jane, and one of our girls literally must have been listening to it that day, walked in for a training session and said, I'm not chucking up the dampener to 10 anymore. And I was like, okay, yeah, no, we never would have said to, but, you know, we'd have gone for like the middle of the range 5 or something like that, you know. And then literally about a day later, I got a phone call from the local F45 owner in Cambridge just to say, we're unable to host this event in Cambridge. Are you able to host it, Ergami? And I'm sitting there going, oh yeah, we've got to take this. Like, and we took it. And Jane came here and changed our lives. And the thing is everything in your episode started to come out. And the best thing for us is it wasn't the first thing. It wasn't the first time we'd heard it. We'd heard her tell you. And then she started showing us it in the actual workshop. And we were like, wow. But it made sense because of the episode we had with you. And, you know, and the way that you spoke to her, and, you know, she came up with some right gold dust on that, as you said. Like, I think the team here really appreciated that episode, and, you know, they came in, start asking questions. We end up with Ergami, and actually it all comes through, and now we're all better better ergers, and sometimes we're a little bit critical of others now, because you know, but that kind of information, when you started the podcast, like, did you necessarily think, you know, let's say you've decided the podcast is happening, you're doing these episodes, were you hoping there would be episodes like Jane's, Ben's, to kind of make a difference in people's lives when they first join it? Like Nick Bear, he wants to be a student, he looks for your episodes and he can listen to that and get a lot out of it. Did you think it'd ever become that?
I probably didn't think that in the early days, definitely not. But I do consciously try. I probably consciously try and do that now. In reality, like almost when I'm prepping for an interview, I am thinking, what's the value to the listener of this question? You know, if there's something that I think, you know, if it's not that interesting to get this answer, or if there's not a lot of value to the listener of getting this answer, then I just won't bother, even if it would be filler, if you like. I try and avoid that. So I do try and extract as much value from someone as possible. I do think that's important. Like Jane's is a good example, and I should say Jane's awesome as well. Like, just it's not just what she teaches, like it's just the way she is, and like the energy that she's got and everything like that is amazing. Another one that like springs to mind with that is Chris Hinshaw, who's another reasonably big name. And I remember just going to events and people are warming up differently because of like the Chris Hinshaw episode. And like so many people have told me how it's like changed their warm-up routine, or changed something about how they race, or their mindset, or something like that, just purely because of that episode. And I'm like, wow, this is actually genuinely making a difference. You know, I think it was like the London event just after Hinshaw's episode, and there was like a lot of people doing different things because of that. So yeah, it's pretty crazy, to be fair.
No, it's great. And you know, in a world where people aren't always nice to each other, I think, you know, paying it forward and trying to help people is probably why a lot of people, maybe why you did your nutritionist job. That's why people like me I go into the fitness industry for that. And hopefully a lot of people in this industry do. And, you know, if there is this forever content that can help a great athlete like Nick Bear come along to Hyrox as a sport and learn from what you've put out there, then, you know, brilliant. And the more of it, the better. Let's crack on. Let's keep going with it. It's awesome. So, you know, we've got the Roxlyfe. We listen to that every week. So you've now got this podcast in production, and you're doing it regularly. Guests are coming on, and then the sponsorship starts coming in. And you know, is that natural progression?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, I know I was doing Roxlyfe for over a year before I made any money out of it. Really, it was just chipping away. Didn't even necessarily see a path to making money out of it. But yeah, I just stuck with it consistently because I enjoyed it as well. I mean, I'm a geek on the sport, and it was more just like talking about it, writing about it, enjoying it. And then, yeah, over time that has been able to lead to, you know, certain sponsorships and things like that, which has been nice because it, you know, helps me to do this basically full time now. And, but yeah, that wasn't necessarily the intention at the start. I couldn't necessarily see that happening, but it has, like with the numbers, and also like the numbers that the website and the podcast are getting, and just like the growth of the sport. People, like brands, are now seeing where this sport's going. They want to get involved. They want to, you know, they want a piece of it, and that, like, the podcast and the website is a way for them to get involved in that. So yeah,
no, awesome. And you know, I'd imagine quite a nice feeling. The aim's not to go out there and monetize it, but actually now it's allowed you to do it full time, or almost full time. You know, it must be a good feeling, because there was no like intent there, but it's just an organic thing that's happened. And that in life, that must be quite a good feeling, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. I was on a My Protein photo shoot the other day, and I was like, I'm 44-year-old balding person that's like on this My Protein photo shoot. I was like, how's this happened? But yeah, it's cool. Yeah, so like things like that, and working with Built for Athletes, you know, doing some stuff with Puma. It's very cool. It's very lucky.
And officially a Hyrox ambassador as well.
Yeah, Hyrox UK ambassador as well. Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that have kind of come from this process, which seems really cool. And like you said, you've ended up at a My Protein shoot, and perhaps that wouldn't have been something you would have done. But in terms of the products like My Protein itself, it comes across that you wouldn't work with them if you didn't think it was a good product anyway. And sometimes that can be in sport, whether it be professional football or whatever. Sponsorship and money coming in might be because people need that to happen, but actually it comes across that you actually enjoy the product. Say, if we use My Protein as an example, you enjoy the product, you'd use it probably anyway.
Yeah, 100%. I wouldn't ever talk about a product like I didn't use or like or appreciate. And we've certainly had brands reach out wanting to advertise. I'm just like, no, I don't use that. I don't believe in it. Things like that. So I'm not going to talk about it. And I think like you just sort of said, it comes across, and I do think people can tell. And I remember thinking this when I had my own supplement company. It would have been very easy to start selling certain supplements that could have made quite a lot of money, but I just didn't believe they worked. I didn't think there was any evidence behind them. I didn't think they were good enough, so I wouldn't have sold it. And to be able to like write a sales page or do a video talking about a product or doing a post talk about the product that you truly believe in, as opposed to something you're just trying to sell. I think that comes through. I think like the authenticity comes through, and I think the other like the people on the other end can tell when it's authentic. And so like some of the My Protein products I don't talk about in reality, but the ones that I do use and like, I will talk about. And I think like their Hyrox range is very good. I think it's been designed very well, to be fair. So yeah,
no, I think you're right, and we can see that. I can see that from you, and I think there are probably some, not in Hyrox necessarily, but in sport, there's some classics out there where you can just tell that the athlete's being paid because they don't really believe in it, but they're just saying it because it's a way to finance it. And I guess there's an argument for that, because these minor sports, if you like, these minority sports, if that's what we're still classing Hyrox as, I'll ask you about that in a bit. But these minority sports, they take a lot of funding, and I can see why people will make rash decisions around sponsorship. And it sounds like you've had to fight off a few from the podcast yourself that you just wouldn't do, which is always, it's great to hear, and it's great to be able to share that and understand the podcast as a whole, because it's very much in the public eye, Greg. I think you must be aware of how many people are aware of what Roxlyfe is, and it's great that from where we're sitting, we want to tune in every week. A, the information's great. B, it's very helpful. You can apply it. But C, the integrity seems to be there. And I think that will bring people back to your show all the time. I don't know if you've thought about that in the process.
Maybe subconsciously, in reality. Like, and maybe I'm just lucky in that when I started this, it wasn't something that I'm like, right, I've really got to make X amount every month just to make ends meet or anything like that. It was always just, I just want to put out good content and content that I want to read and speak to people that I would want to listen to and ask questions that I would want to know the answers to, and talk about products that I would genuinely use. And then, maybe if I had to make X amount every month from it, then I might have to take a different approach and think about things differently. But because I can literally just create the product and talk about the things that I want to use and talk about, then I'm in a lucky position to be able to do that. So I think that's, it's just a result of that, if anything.
Yeah, and there's a few of us now, yourself, me, Ian K with UK Racing Podcast, the Rad Chicks, in the UK, there's quite a few of us. I feel like we're all here because we would talk about this anyway, and we're a little bit obsessed about it. It's not for any other game. We would kind of be in this game anyway, because if I weren't talking to you about it, I'd be talking to someone out there on the gym floor about it. Sort of thing. So, it's good. It's nice. It's nice that it's happened. And it's good that people want to talk about Hyrox and the whole world of hybrid fitness racing. I mean, it's great. And then the next obvious question that if I was listening to this episode, I would want me to ask is, what is the process, or how on earth do you go from doing a podcast, and what is the process to get you on this world commentary stage? You know, how does it happen? You know, Faisal told us last time about the journey, the very organic journey to becoming the MC for Hyrox. You know, and we'll wait to see what you say. But yeah, how did it happen?
It's not the most exciting story ever, really, but it's really, I can't even remember the timeline now, but maybe a month before the World Championships in Manchester, I got an email from Mo Firster, the co-owner of Hyrox, asking if I wanted to do the commentary for the World Championships, and that's really as simple as it was. I hadn't thought about doing that. I hadn't tried to do that. I was absolutely terrified of doing that in reality, and it kind of comes back to I never particularly wanted to do a podcast initially because I didn't think it suited my skills or anything like that, and so doing commentary had certainly never crossed my mind either. But for whatever reason, they thought that I might be suitable for it, and then yeah, it went from there. But it was terrifying in all honesty for me, at least like before we did it. But they were very clear, like it was going to be with like Rox was doing the commentating for that event, and so like he was more the commentator, the hype guy, the this, that, and the other, and I was there for the stats and to understand like the athletes and that. And so like in reality,
so you were like Gary Neville to Martin Tyler.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
To be fair, it worked. It worked because that's what we you know, that example I've just given you, that's exactly what we thought. I was at Manchester, so I heard your voice when I watched the highlights and the replay. But recognizable voice, this Greg from Roxlyfe, you know, like I know they said it, but you know, Enoch said it to the listeners, but at the end of the day, it was good that it was a voice that maybe some of us UK people might have trusted anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yeah.
And I think that's worked really well because, you know, you're a voice that we listen to on a Zone 2 run, or when we're driving to watch our football team for an hour in the van or whatever, and then you're on the majors or the world champs, and it's a voice that we go, okay, we trust this guy, you know, he talks to these people. And I think it's worked really well. As a consumer, if you like, for me, for you as the person actually doing it, outside of the nerves and everything else, on reflection, how's that kind of first 18 months of that been?
Yes, it's been awesome. Like the first time was, there's nerves partly because of the unknown. Like you just don't know what's involved, what you're meant to do, anything like that. It was very much just throw you in at the deep end. There weren't really any prep for it, really. Like I met with Lauren the morning of the event, and we sort of talked about some things that we might talk about in the pre-show, but that was it. But so the prep from my side was just making sure I knew like the athletes inside out, and like really geeking out on their stats and who's going to be good on the sled push and who's going to come back on the wall balls and that kind of stuff. So just making sure that I knew the sport inside out, really. So that first event was definitely nerve-wracking, and then once you know what to expect and what's involved, then become a little bit more comfortable with every event now. And also like work with Teal and Lauren, when we kind of like get to know each other now, and you know what the other one knows and what the other one's going to talk about. It's great. It's great fun, really. It's good. Like we're going to all these different events, seeing all these amazing athletes, commentating on some brilliant races. Like the last 4 or 5 races, especially, have been fantastic. So to be able to be involved in that is awesome. Yeah. And from my perspective, like I say, I'm just conscious trying to understand the sport inside out and the athletes inside out. And if I can like come to a commentary sort of event being confident that I know that, then I know I can talk about what's happening on, you know, in the race.
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's cool to understand that and hear your version of it, because it's been great. And you know, even Amsterdam last week, that was again, it was a brilliant race, like the way it unfolded and the way it went. And obviously you guys are actually there, and you could see where you were actually on the cameras. You could see you up on like the Thunderdrome bit in the corner, weren't you, at the end of it, I think.
Yeah.
And it's a good
Yeah.
view from there.
Yeah, it's good. And I mean, I've got to say, like the investment that Hyrox are putting into it is clear every single time we come back to an event. Like the production team are coming back with more and more people, more and more equipment, more cameras, like more graphics that they've been working on, more stats during the race, everything like that. It steps up a level every single event, and I think that's a mentality within Hyrox. Really, you've probably noticed it yourself at like UK events. There's normally just something that's a touch better than the previous time, and that they're certainly applying that to the commentary. So it's good to be a part of that and seeing that as it happens, because they're definitely putting work into it. And I do think as well. I mean, I'm not really involved in tons of minority sports, but I do think like the quality of what the production and what they're putting into it relative to the size of the sport, which is like maybe going to be 500,000 competitors this year, like feels big to us, but in the grand scheme of things, compared to other sports, it's not huge. But I think the quality of the live stream that they're putting out is much bigger than some other bigger sports would be putting out.
Yeah, no, I found that interesting actually on the Buttery Bros documentary from the Worlds. I think Heber did say on there, obviously they're big CrossFit filmmakers, and he did pass comment at just the level of production that they'd bothered to put in for the sport. And obviously he's coming probably from a CrossFit background, and he says that one line on there, and you're like, okay, these guys have worked for CrossFit, now work away from CrossFit but in CrossFit, and they talk about live coverage, and they were pretty impressed with it. And they're like filmmakers, they're like professional filmmakers that have always done it. So it was interesting to get that feedback. And then with what you've just said, I think that kind of says it all, really. And I think I've always thought, and I have noticed, like you mentioned, I think you're right, I think Hyrox as an establishment are some of the fastest learners in the world. Like they'll change it there and then if it's not working. They'll like, and the best bit about it, that I think, despite various criticisms that Hyrox or certain individuals might get, it'll be Mo and Christian on the ground changing it. Like they'll literally be there changing it. And I think that goes unseen unless you happen to see it. But even if people turn a blind eye because they don't know who they are, but those are the people that like founded this sport. They're on the ground and they're changing it and they're learning. And I think, that's my experience anyway. That might just be a rose tinted glasses, but actually it is what I've seen. And it sounds like, you're going back to something that's improved every time as a broadcaster. You're out there now and there's something new every time, which is great. So a few questions then, a bit more quick fire. You as a competitor and an athlete, what have you experienced in Hyrox yourself as a competitor? Have you just done sort of doubles? Are you doing it for fun? Have you been at a competitive level? What is it you've done in terms of participation?
What have I done? I've done singles and doubles. I was in the World Championships in Nice. I competed with Jane in the mixed doubles. We did. I'm not sure where we finished. Maybe 20th overall in our age group. And then the year before that, I was at the World Championships in Manchester with my mate in the men's doubles. And again, we finished a similar position. I do a reasonable amount of singles, mainly in the open at the moment, although probably go to pro more now, especially with the World Championships qualifying spots being more pro weighted. So I've got, what have I done? From my first race was 129-ish, I think, in the open. And I've done 107 the other day in Amsterdam. So just chipping away at my time. I'm not top of the age group by any means, but I'm more interested in like beating my PB every time is like my aim. I'm just constantly trying to chip off time off my own PB.
And do you do that? Do you do that through like the nutrition background as well? Do you try and apply some nutrition stuff to that yourself to try and to change that and optimize performance?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like, I'd probably be doing that anyway. It's just, just part of who I am. I kind of enjoy my food, enjoy what I eat. But it is certainly, designed to try and help my performance. And in reality, I'm training a lot at the moment. We were talking before we started recording, like, you're quite high volume, and I'm definitely high volume at the moment, which generally means that I'm just eating tons and tons of food to fuel that performance, which I enjoy. Like, that's one of the benefits of training. Maybe something that not enough people do at the moment, to be honest, is eating enough for the amount of training that they're doing in Hyrox.
Common problem, I find, actually.
Yeah.
On a coaching level, I find that quite a common problem here.
Yeah. Too. There's a lot of people in, like, discover this sport, which is very much performance based, but they're coming from a body composition mindset, and like the amount of food and the amount of carbs that you need to fuel that performance is vastly different, really. So yeah, it's a mentality shift for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's me in.
So is the goal for you as a competitor just to kind of keep chipping away at it and enjoy the process?
Yeah, it is really. It is. I mean, I always want to try and qualify for the World Championships. That's kind of like a goal, or has been a goal. I mean, with the amount of the level of the sport is crazy at the moment, and more people coming in. So whether in 1, 2, 3 years time that is still a realistic goal or not, I don't know. But so I just want to continue to get better.
Have you ever done a relay or anything like that? I've done a relay.
No, I've not done a relay. I've not done a relay. No, just doubles and singles.
We've got some of our members like Tatey and Sue, Michael, Sharon. They're doing it from our gym, and I think it's the second relay we've had from the gym. The people haven't got involved, but I sort of seen various sort of elite athletes post on their Instagrams and stuff like, these are really fun. You should do them. But maybe we could have a laugh one day, like me, you, Ian K, and the Rad Chicks. I was like, try and do it like a podcast relay or something. That'd be quite funny, actually.
Apparently they are great. People say they're great. I mean, it depends. They're good fun. I know Paul has said it's also like disgusting if you like really push yourself to the limit for, let's say, 7-8 minutes for your leg. Then it can really hurt more than a singles or a doubles. So it's fun, but nasty at the same time, I think.
And actually, you were commentating on it, but for me in Nice, one of the best spectacles of the weekend was the relay. Actually, that was frighteningly entertaining as a sport.
Yeah. People loved it. That's what most people have talked about, from that weekend. And I think like they're doing the elite doubles. This World Championships as well, so I think that will be received similarly. It's I think because it will be fast and because there's kind of like more of a team to support. I think that's pretty exciting from a commentary perspective. The relay with 20 teams of 4 people is hard work, and now we've got the doubles, so there's like an awful lot of athletes that I need to learn about as opposed to the 30 in the singles, but it's good.
Yeah, and a few, I'll kind of give you a few questions in one. So Hyrox this season, and let's talk about the elite terms. Well, how do you think it's going to go? You got any thoughts on who might come out on top? And in particular, is there anyone that you can see really kind of breaking into this? I know we saw Joanna recently in Amsterdam, but like, is there anyone you can see breaking into this that is perhaps unknown to the listeners right now? But how do you sort of see the year going?
I think both fields are very, very competitive, more competitive than they've ever been, and I think that, like I nearly said earlier when we're talking about commentary on the races, because the fields are much more competitive and much more close, that's leading to much better racing, and I think we're going to continue to see that. So, like on the women's side, for example, we've seen Megan and Lauren dominate to a certain extent. It's normally one of those that are going to win and take the lead fairly early on. I think that will happen less and less. We've seen Joanna come in, Joanna Wettrick. I think she's going to be amazing if she sticks with it. To be only 22 and doing what she's doing already, relatively inexperienced in the sport or this style of training as well. When she specializes for a consistent period of time, she could do amazing things. but not just her. People like, like Kate Davey was fourth the other day. You've got Lauren Griffith, people like Zara Piergiani, like really knocking on the door of breaking into that top three, if you like. And then like Germans like Linda Meyer, Viola Oberlander. There's as people consistently train year over year, more people come into the sport, more people work out how to train for something like this. I think we're going to see better and better racing and more competition. In terms of predictions on the women's side, I honestly don't know. I think it's very close between Megan Lauren and Joanna, I would say, for the World Championships, but someone else might surprise me. And similarly, on the men's side, more and more guys coming in. It's incredibly hard just to get into those Elite 15 races now. It's like seconds really separates like the top 30 guys. So it's who can do it on the day. Alex is always going to be hard to beat. He's been around the sport for years and years and years, so consistent. This Hunter is going to want his world title back. Like Sandy was amazing in Nice. You've got people like Jake did and sort of breaking into that Elite 15 now, who is potentially going to be amazing. Like he did well in Amsterdam, not as well as he wanted to, but he still did well. But to have like he's jacked. He done a 2:28 marathon recently. Yeah. That was a week after doing a 56-minute Hyrox in Cape Town. I think he's going to be special. And I've never once felt like and I might be wrong here, that he's truly specialized and focused on training for a single Hyrox event to be as good as he possibly can. Like he's always had these marathons going on, or like he done 11 Hyrox in one weekend and in amazing times. But even like training and preparing to do that isn't necessarily training and preparing to do one Hyrox as quickly as you possibly can.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what he can do over the next year or so. Yeah,
no, awesome. And then the last question, really, future of Hyrox. What do you hope? What do you see?
It's hard to say. Like just the growth that they're going through at the moment, I would think will continue. It's competition may eventually come in, but I'm not sure they're that concerned by that, because as long as they're like the leader in this space, I think, if you go and do another fitness racing event, that almost eventually inspires you to go and do a Hyrox anyway. So it's like helps the sport to grow. Obviously it's done amazing in the UK and is doing amazing. And I think they could sell out events time and time again in the UK, really. And then like if you get that kind of success into the US and into Asia and things like that, then there's 550,000 competitors for this season, but I think it can go well beyond that in reality, because it's something that is so accessible and people have been waiting for, and you've been training in the gym with no real purpose, and I think this gives people a purpose. And I've certainly seen it in my gym, which is by no means like a high performance gym. If you want, there's competitors going to do Hyrox, or members going to do Hyrox that would have never considered a fitness event in the past, but there's something about this one that's captured their attention, and I think that's going to happen in gyms all over the world, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely changed us. It changed us for the better in terms of like perhaps even still having a business. I would go as far as saying that has helped us as well. So, but nice for us to think that the UK has been the world leader in terms of the enthusiasm in those early years. That'll be a nice thing to always know, I think, and something that I've enjoyed being part of, and I'm sure you have as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I must say, like the Amsterdam event last weekend had that vibe to it. It was a 3-day event plus the Thursday night for the elite race, thousands of people, and I was there on Friday daytime. I was talking to John Singleton, and he was like, "This is actually pretty crazy. There's this many people here. This is a work day. It's just a Friday weekday, and there's thousands of people here that have just come for this event." And he was like, "Yeah, that is pretty mad, actually. That not many other events would put an event on like that on a weekday and have that many people turn up. So it is capturing people's attention."
Yeah, I
sure.
think we're about to see that in Birmingham and at the EXL as well. I should think it'll be like that in the UK. It'll be mad. So, and then bring on Glasgow with a major as well. Like, I've got to be honest, the idea of jumping on the train and heading up there is going to be ace. So, yeah, I'll definitely see it that one as well. Cool, brilliant. So, Greg, thanks so much for coming on. It's been amazing chatting and understanding a little bit more about like what's going on behind the scenes. If anyone who's listened to this today hadn't previously found you, where can they find you? Where's the best place to look?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. It was so my website is roxlyfe.com, ROXLYFE. And yeah, we've got the Roxlyfe podcast. We're at the Roxlyfe on Instagram. There's a YouTube channel as well. So yeah, they're all the best places.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll throw it into the description on the YouTube video and on the podcast as well. So if you are listening, guys, head down to the description. Make sure you check it out. Check out those particular interviews that we were talking about. That'd be a good place to start, in my opinion, as a fan of the Roxlyfe. I would say go into those episodes first and have a good listen, and that will really set the tone for what it's like. But yeah, no, thanks very much, Greg. And to everyone that's listened, watched, wherever it is you're getting this podcast, I want to say thanks very much for coming in. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. If there's anyone you know in particular that listens to the Roxlyfe, please forward it. Please share it. If you could like, comment. Same on Greg's podcast as well. These likes, these comments, they all help, and they all sort of realize that it makes it worth doing and that people are out there actually consuming what we do. So we do really appreciate that feedback. But for now, thanks again, Greg. And thanks to everyone who's listened. And we will see you again to discuss more on the Rox.